If you guys like martial arts, combat sports, anime, well, that's in the 20%. Make sure to subscribe and like to the Drew Experience, available on YouTube, at iTunes Podcast, and Spotify, where I raise the bar of martial arts and also talk about pop culture with martial arts. As mentioned, 80% combat sports, 20% everything else. And this is the Drew Experience, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. Saying it again. The show is brought to you by three things. First, KRT Tips and Tricks, where senseis Wesley Jensen and Darren Stringer are bringing together all the minds of striking martial arts in the largest online growing dojo during these times of the pandemic to show why martial arts, regardless of your style, is beautiful either way. The show is also brought to you by Kyokushin Shuffle Podcast with Sensei Pat Pinto and his book Forever the Student ebook, which is available for purchase online, where he picks the greatest minds of kickboxing, Kyokushin, and other martial arts to see how they excel at their craft. And lastly, finding a good MMA manager is hard. It's in today's game. You want a manager that cares for your interests and make sure that you understand the fight window. Luckily, there's Moments Management, where Nima Safapur and his team, who represent clients such as Alex Gustafson, Gegard Musasi, Pani Kianzad, Bea Maliki, Costello Van Stennis, among many others, will take the time to help you understand fighting, understand your fight window, and also teach you about the importance of investing and saving your money for what happens after fighting. Moments Management, where care comes first. So today I'm joined by a big guest. I've been wanting to have him on for a while. We finally made it happen. He is not only a Shodan in Kyokushin, he is also a successful entrepreneur with his business, Modern Warrior Defense. He's also the #1 ranked amateur kickboxer because he loves kickboxing in all facets. I am super honored to be joined today by Sensei Sasha. Welcome to the show, Sasha.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Yeah. So it's, you have quite an interesting story. I mean, from, being, it's out of a movie, like you talk about flipping the script in real life. You did it.
I mean, I tried. I don't think during that time there was ever like a moment that you were thinking like, oh, this is like a movie. I can't wait for the recovery. It was like trying to survive, really.
Mm-hmm.
So no, but I'm just really grateful to be able to continue doing what I love and try to help out my community as best I can. Right.
Awesome. So you're from British Columbia. So you're on the west side of the country. I'm from the east side in Quebec. Yeah. West side, what's up? Yeah. It's cold down here, but down there it's rain, So, so Vancouver and British Columbia does have a very rich Kyokushin scene. It's kind of a hidden gem for those who don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talent because you think of it, it's on the Pacific, so you're somewhat close to Japan and Asia. When you think of it, it's the gateway to Asia from Canada. So tell me, how did you start in Kyokushin? What got you into it?
So actually my first I first started training when I was 5 years old, but it wasn't in Kyokushin. It was actually at a place called Champions. And my first ever sensei was Sensei Mo. And he was probably one of the most impactful people in my life. Mainly because I was a really rough kid to be around. I was just like hyperactive, very too much energy, can't listen. And it wasn't until like when I got older that I realized that the main guys who were running Champions Kickboxing they were Kyokushin practitioners at one point. Fun story. I don't think they even got a funny story too. I don't think they even got to Shodan, but a lot of our katas that we were doing in that kickboxing group was from Kyokushin. So unfortunately, I think it was around ages 7 or 8. My Sensei Mo was I don't like talking about it too much, but he was actually got caught up in gang related thing, and he was killed and he passed away. And it was like really, really hard for me. And then at that time, also my family ended up moving away from Champions to another city called Coquitlam, really far away from where I was living and where the dojo was. And I think that move and then losing him, it was like so painful. I can't really even explain what I felt. It was just obviously moving away from your friends as a young kid. You're just like, you have to restart everything. But like losing my sensei in such a permanent way too was really hard. So I was really turned off by all kinds of martial arts until grade, not grade, but when I was 8. So I moved over to China, and then 8 years old, my dad was introduced to a Kyokushin gym with a guy named Sensei Leo, and then that's where I met my main sensei. His name is Sensei Dean, and that's kind of how I started Kyokushin, and I stayed Kyokushin until now, pretty much. Yeah.
It's crazy how just like bite the once the Kyoku, it's like a lot of karate styles. What I've seen, I mean, I don't want to sound biased. I mean, look, I respect anybody who takes up any style of martial art, whether that's a Ryu style of karate or Kempo or Shotokan. But I noticed that whenever they come to Kyokushin, it like changes them. It's like they're like, wow, this is something that I never knew I needed, and I love it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember when I was training when I was young, like, so imagine like in the kickboxing world, especially like all the kids were wearing all these pads and all this other stuff. So then the first, the first I think was like when I went to see Sensei Leo and I started training with Sensei Dean, it was pretty surreal to just be wearing these like small gloves or nothing. And then just people are just hitting body shots. It was a bit weird to me. They weren't hitting to the head, but they were kicking to the head as hard as they wanted. And they were just going at it, and it was intimidating. It was really intimidating. I could see a lot of students like in my age group that sometimes they'd be there and then the year later they just weren't. They weren't
Hmm.
sticking around. But man, the people who do stay end up turning into something else. You just it it conditions you in such a way that it just you shed all the fear of getting hurt or getting in there or engaging with someone if you have to. And I think ultimately when it comes down to any kind of, now that I teach street self-defense as well, your fight response is so important because it's fight, flight, or freeze, right? And all those are valid depending on the scenario that you're in. But at one point, if you decide that you need to fight, that needs to be the reaction. Then you need to ensure that you do something. And with Kyokushin, I think it ingrains it in you that you do something all the time. You're always moving, you're always acting, you're always like, if you get hit, you hit back right away. There's no just taking shots and not saying anything. There's a response always. So yeah, I think I still to this day, I think it's the best foundation. I think it's the best martial arts to start with. I think it's the best one to continue staying with. The community is really big, family oriented. It's just like, and those deep values, those traditional values of martial arts are still ingrained in it, and you just can't separate it from it. So, yeah, I'm just grateful to be a part of it. And I'm grateful to teach it now at my school too. So.
I feel the same way. I'm not a showdown, but I will be a showdown. The goal is by 2022. I've set that goal. I'm a green
Let's
belt
do
right
it.
now.
Of
Yeah.
course. Very
So
good.
you see me. I'm wearing my. Come on, let me move my mic. I'm wearing my. This is my KRT tips and tricks sweater. There's like the guys, so you
Nice.
see it. Yeah, gotta
Nice. Nice.
represent. Gotta
Yeah, gotta
represent.
represent.
I love it, man. Like I mean, I don't think I'd be where I am without Kyokushin. I mean, it's such a big community. It's where I met my coach. It's where I really like. I just want to really say to every single person that's from Nakamura organization in Canada and Kyokushin in general, for those who see that I do what I do, getting on you people like you, Jean Pierre Cataford, Sensei Joanne Fournier, and her student Bernardo, who's like and amongst others, like the support in that community is just so deep. It's like they see you're doing something, they're gonna get behind you, and a
Oh,
majority of the
absolutely.
time, oh, they go full throttle, and that's what I love doing about this. Like, I mean, like look, BJJ gets enough. Like they get enough spotlight for how good their community is. How it's like I found my B tribe in BJJ. Well, you know
Yeah,
what? We got to show Kyokushin you find your tribe here too. And I
yeah.
love BJJ, but it's time that Kyokushin. I have to. I. It's not Kyokushin's role. It's people like myself, the guys on KRT, Wesley and Darren, Marshall Way blog, Kyokushin Shuffle. It's the practitioners and the teachers who have to raise the bar. The organizations can't do it alone. We have a part to do it ourselves, and
I
that's
agree.
what I love.
I agree for sure. I mean, the community is so supportive of each other. I mean, so I had to close my dojo. My dojo is actually still closed because of COVID.
Wow.
So I mean, I do what I can where we can, sometimes with privates, just to control that dynamic between of who's in the dojo, who's not in the dojo, and things like that. and trying our best to just to pay the rent, survive, things like that. And then I remember when first COVID started, I thought I'm gonna close the dojo down. So I started giving out these free lessons online. It was one in the morning, one at night. It was just online, Instagram live, these workouts just to do. And it was kind of like in my head, it was my last hurrah. I was like, you know what? If the dojo's gonna close, I'm gonna go down swinging. I'm just gonna do what I love, and if it closes, it closes. At least people remember, like Sasha at least tried to keep everyone on a consistent pattern of doing something. So I was doing that for a while, and then eventually I said, "Hey guys, if we're gonna put a donation link up, if you guys want to donate, that's great. But otherwise, this will be it around this time." And I don't know if you know Sensei Sylvain from Montreal as well. Do you know Sensei Sylvain? He's with Xian Pierre as well under that organization.
Yeah.
But anyway, a lot of them just from that side were starting to donate money to me on this side, and
Wow.
it means the world to me. Like here's some guys who are not even living in Vancouver and they were donating. So it's amazing.
The one thing I want to say about like what she and Pierre has done with his community is like he has really and taught them be a good human being, not just in the
Yeah,
dojo but outside the dojo. And when he brings people into his association, he really vets them because it's very something. If you let one rotten apple in, it's going to affect everybody. So
yeah, absolutely.
he is extremely he is extremely damn precise. Like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
vets you. And I remember when we were off the record, like he'll confirm it when he watches this conversation. When we were off the record, he's like, Andrew, he's like, Drew, why do you want to be a black belt? And he's like, you better be on it. He's like, I'd like you to be honest with me because a lot of people, they say, oh, I want to be a black belt because I saw it in a movie or it looks cool. What is
Yeah,
your why? So I told him, and I say it, the reason why I want to be a black belt is because I want to teach martial arts to at-risk youth and special needs kids because I know what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel in terms
okay.
of like being like seen as a statistic. I wasn't at risk, but I am on the spectrum mildly with like
Sure,
mild
sure.
ASD, and I just want to use my platform, not only this, but also when I become a showdown to tell those kids, listen, everybody has a role to play. Every person's child has a gift to contribute to society, no
For
matter what
sure.
walk of life they come from.
For
And I
sure.
think that's what Chien Pierre teaches. Because when I love what Chien Pierre said, he's like, if anything, he's like, you're the teacher for me. If you tell me you have something like say ADHD or like mild autism, because
Yeah.
I have to learn how to work with you.
Yeah, yeah. I that's I mean
Yeah.
that's Champier in a nutshell, though, for sure.
And that's what
Yeah,
Nakamura has.
yeah, for sure. It's like you always stay the student. And as an instructor, yeah, like when you become a showdown and you become an instructor, it's up to you to find a way to explain the same thing seven different ways because everyone learns differently. And I think that's what ultimately a good instructor does is like, hey, I need to learn from you. What is the best way for you to learn something? Otherwise, I can't just have a one size fits all. I try this, and if it doesn't work out, like, I guess you're not made for karate. You can't do karate now. It's like, no, that's not the case. You have to find out how you can connect to people on different ways. And if you have to find 10 different ways to explain it, then so be it. And if you
No,
can't, or if you
yeah,
don't have the patience, then maybe instructing, maybe being a showdown isn't for you, right? You just stay a brown belt. It's okay.
nothing wrong.
No, nothing wrong.
Or if you're a showdown, you just do competitions.
Yeah, sure. Right? No, for sure. I think that's important. Like what he just asked you is really important. Like ultimately, once you become a showdown, once you become in a position of you know whatever, I don't want to say power, but like influence. How is it that you want to influence? What is it exactly that you're influencing? Who is it that you want to influence? And what is the message that you want to bring across? I think those things are really important. It will determine how you will act,
There
right?
are some, yeah, because there are some black belts that still have their ego. They never check their ego
Mm,
at the door. And like Pierre, and 'cause you have to understand, like whether this is like Xian Pierre or all senseis, when you give a black belt to someone, and if they're not conducting how like expect others, it's a reflection on you as
mm,
not only a teacher but a business owner.
mm,
So
mm,
we
mm.
speak about entrepreneurship. If you have one teacher that's like demeaning or not being really like present to help a student, what does that say about you as an owner, like in the people you're bringing into your team? So
Yeah,
it's super
absolutely.
important that you have, like, you're an entrepreneur with Modern Warrior. I'm sure
Mm.
when you have your team people, like the people you work with, I'm pretty sure like you're checking out who's who to make sure that they're helping you succeed and move forward as an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. The vision has to be the same. I've actually, one of the things that I was telling them, like, ultimately, I don't need to agree with someone, whether they're like their political views or like the way they're thinking about certain things. I need to make sure that their vision is the same as mine. And like, so I have actually, I wrote down, like, I guess you could say a Venn diagram of the vision board of what I wanted. And I had written down, and I ended up making like a 5-year plan for the business and like where I wanted it to go, what aspects of the community I wanted it to touch base with and make impacts on. And I had it all in this duotang. And I actually gave each member that was going to sign up to be an instructor there this paper. And we went through it together. I said, does anything on there not make sense to you? Because like this is the direction that we're headed. Obviously, if they have some input, great. But like this is the direction we're headed. And if it didn't line up with me, I'm like, I couldn't, even if I liked them, I'm like, unfortunately we can't work together because the vision wasn't the same. So everyone that I have on there right now, we vetted, and they're all amazing, amazing, amazing people. And we just brought another person on board. Her name is Victoria Federchuk, and she's a trauma specialist. So she's actually a counselor for trauma therapy. So now we've kind of touched bases on all aspects of self-defense now. So we have the reaction part, but then now we have identification and prevention through Victoria. So it's really awesome, man. Like we're in a really cool place. I got 2 great wrestlers. I have another instructor, Mazdak, who I've been kind of making him into my secondhand man, I guess, to just kind of duplicate myself through him. And we're just all same vision. It's great.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. I love what you said. Like you really helped make your team, and you have to do that. Like for me, like I mean, because the one thing too is when I'm doing a podcast, and when people see that you're getting attention, everybody wants to be your friend. It's like that too with an entrepreneur. Everybody
Mm,
wants to get in that a slice of the pie. But I've really learned to, like, shout out to my coach Mo, by the way, who you know,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
Sandro, and like
yeah,
you
yeah,
also know Tarek too, Tarek
yeah,
Boutois.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Terry, I met him randomly actually through Mo's Instagram, and then he was in Japan, and I told him like, man, you're training in Japan, because I've been wanting to go compete there for professionally for kickboxing for a while now. And there was actually some projects in the works for March to go to Rise, but unfortunately then COVID happened. But anyway, yeah, I was talking to Eric, and I was telling him, he came back to Montreal, said, anytime you come to Vancouver, man, just let me know. You have a place to stay if you want to train and things like that. But yeah, those guys, they're all really good guys. Mohammed, I miss him a lot too. I remember him competing in the strong guy, strong, strong
yeah.
competitor.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, he's one of the best. I mean, look, it's very subjective when you say who are the best heavyweights in Canada because there's like Western and Eastern, but he's up there.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah,
up there.
for sure.
He's up there. But and as they were saying, to take it back to having a team and keeping it a small circle, like Mo and Tarek said, when you start getting attention, it's nice, but just make sure you know who's really there for you. You don't
Yeah,
want to have
for
yes
sure.
men. You want to have people tell you what you need to hear rather than what you want to hear. Like,
Absolutely.
so that's why I really learned from them. And I mean, Mo especially, like he's really like, especially with like Kyokushin, because we have a very good community. I need to make this clear. We have a beautiful community, but like every community, you're gonna have a few individuals who have their own agendas. And I've
Sure.
really learned to not only just not chase others, but just don't give them attention. Like like, and
Hmm.
if they start, like, if they said no for me, it's like if they said no to you once or ignored you when you were coming up, don't be vengeful, be respectful, but just let them know,
Yeah,
like,
like
yeah,
where their heads at, pretty
yeah.
much. Yeah.
That's what I've learned. So always have a good team around you, whether that's in
Yeah,
martial arts, business, podcasting.
for sure.
Um, the other thing too, Sasha, is like I heard you on a podcast. It was like it was like one for millennials. Where
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Millennials with machetes.
millennials with machetes.
Yeah,
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 catchy name.
yeah, yeah.
And you said your story, so I want to hear from you, like what happened exactly, because you went through some pretty crazy shit. It was where you kind of lost mobility actually and function in like in like your left side, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I was more than partially paralyzed. I don't know
Hmm.
how else to say that. So I can't say fully paralyzed because I still had feeling in my left side of my body, but down on the lower parts of my leg. But I would say more than partially because as the days would go on, sometimes it would go more and more numb to the point where I'd put my foot down and it would just give out because like the nerves weren't firing to get the muscles working, right? So um, yeah, how that happened. So I mean, after so I've always like, and long story short, I've always wanted to compete. That's always been a big part of my dream. But coming from a refugee family and that desire to kind of want to make them proud as well, but also for my own sake to have kind of like a plan B. I went to school, did all that stuff. Still, all that time I was doing Kyokushin, I was doing kickboxing, and I just had started kickboxing around that time, like really seriously around 22, and I wanted to make sure that I had my degrees and things like that from like a bachelor's degree at least. So I have a double major, a bachelor's degree from SFU. And after I had finished, I tried to get into a job for diplomatic work. And at that time, Stephen Harper was in power and trying to balance the budget, quote unquote, and they just weren't hiring anybody. So to me, to go into like an internship that was free and then try to also pay off student loans while having another job, 50 hours a week minimum, something like that, something crazy like that. It just didn't make sense. So I started working at this IT company for sales. What I didn't realize that what became an ends to a mean required me to sit for such long periods of time. And again, it could have been the training, it could have been a variety of other things, but after 2 years of just this constant sitting, I'd never sat so much, even in my school life, sat so much straight, you know, like sometimes 6 hours, you're just
Yeah.
sitting. And then after work, I would go train. So that kind of that no core activation to too much core activation, lots of rotation, lots of, kicking, punching. It requires quite a bit on the body internally, especially. I think it might have played a toll. I still don't know. The doctors that I talked to still don't know. But one day I was just picking up like a pen from the ground, and I heard my back go. I heard it.
Oh.
I heard it. I heard it go. And immediately as I heard it go, the entire left side of my body went like shot pain down my leg. So it was like a sciatic pain that went down my leg. And yeah, and that was it. And then from literally from that point on, I think so. I was like at the end of 24, 25. And from that point on, I was injured for the next 3.5 years. Like I had no mobility at all in my
Wow.
left side. Gone. And
And
sorry. I
no,
just,
no, no. Go
yeah,
right ahead. Yeah, no, because like it's a
yeah,
crazy story.
yeah. And then it just like from there, it just progressively got worse. And obviously I lost my desire to even be at work because to me the job was a means to an end, like I said, and I didn't really enjoy doing it. It was just something that I would do to make some money to go train. Now I can't train. I can barely walk. It's like, so why was I at work? So literally 2 months in, it was kind of, they gave me an ultimatum like, hey, maybe it's time for you to go. So then I left and had to go on welfare, moved back with my parents, left my apartment, sold my car, like just to get bills in check. So within a span of 3 months, I went to having a job and all that good stuff to not training, not having anything, and being even a lower place than I ever was in like even high school.
Yeah.
So it just it played on my mind as much as I'd like to say that I was really tough and I was trying to tough it out. Waking up in pain consistently like that, and I'm sure a lot of people can attest to it when you're injured like that. Waking up in pain, it plays on your psyche, and you start giving yourself really bad rhetoric. You start talking to yourself in a very bad way, and before I knew it, I was depressed. Like I was clinically depressed. So
It's
yeah.
tough. I know what you mean. I mean, look, I never had the pain you had, but I know what it's like to go. I went on unemployment for a bit, and I mean, look,
Mm,
as you said, there's nothing wrong with it because everybody's situation is different because everyone's dealt a different hand in life, and that's why we have these
mm,
programs like EI, welfare.
sure.
But when it's like for people like us, where we have degrees, like for me, like the lowest was in 2017, where I was at like I left a call center job, like in terms of
Mm-hmm.
credit card processing. It was a great
Sure.
job in terms of like picking up the soft skills, how to sell, how to take
Sure.
no,
Sure.
but it burns you out. So then I went to another company, a startup. The startup folded. So I learned there, the grass ain't always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
that, I had to register for EI, and it's like every 2 weeks. Did you look for work? Yes. Were you able to find a job? No. And then they're calling you, hey, can you come to like a job fair, like a little job
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
seminar where we're going to go online. We're going to teach you how to make, and it was like, so like, I felt like I put myself in such a box. I said, I have to get myself out of this right away. Like it was
Mm.
worse. Then I accepted a job in a supermarket, which wasn't any better. But as long as the government's not hounding you to why you're not finding work,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh man, like, but I know what you mean. Like it's degrading. It's isn't it like, what was it like when you had
I
to
mean,
like,
I mean, it's degrading because like you know where you were, but see that's like you know where you were and you're comparing yourself to what you are now.
yeah,
But that's one thing from all this that I really realize is that like ultimately if you want to be a really in my again just my opinion, my humble opinion, I think to be a good human, the ideal that we should strive towards is not to belittle anybody's stresses because the
never.
stress response for any kind of stress is going to be always the same, right? Chemically, what happens in people's brains when they're
Mhm.
stressed is going to be the same for everyone, and it has negative repercussions in the same way for everyone, ironically. So what we stress about might be different, but how it metastasizes in the body is going to be the same for everyone, right? And we don't want to get people to a point where they get clinically depressed. We don't want to get people to the point where they gain a ton of weight, heart problems, heart failure, this, that, right? What we should do is maybe not judge them on what it is that they're stressing, but teach them ways to handle said stress. Just again, my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I don't know if you've done this. I've been super guilty of doing this too when I was younger, and I still catch myself sometimes doing it. But when someone tells me about what they're stressed about, my immediate response is like, well, that's not that bad. I mean, look at me. Like when I was like this, I was stressed out about this. So like your stress isn't that bad. You can get over it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've never done that. I just try to, because I know what it's really like to be, as mentioned, like when I was getting
Right.
EI, because I had like, because like I mean Mo, like if you talk to Mo about this, like Mo will, this is when I met Mo, and like and it's also who you're surrounding yourself with too. So when I
Mm.
see someone tell me like, oh, I'm going through this and that, I'll be like, it's okay. I always say, okay, it's like I understand. Like I just listen. Sometimes the best you can do is just listen. Don't
Just
be
listen.
like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
listen.
Don't judge. Just listen. So, example I gave to one of my students, I'm like, it's like say someone a very affluent from an affluent family, always had a car, and then all of a sudden, and especially in Canada, not having a car is kind of it's a little bit hard, and now you have to take public transit, and they're explaining to me the stresses of taking public transit. Growing up, I never had a car, so public transit was commonplace, right? So listening to them stress out, it's kind of like it felt laughable. But then you stop and you're like, okay, this person is genuinely stressed out. This person is genuinely, it's having all the symptoms of deep stress. So if I care about this person, I should listen, not judge. And if I wanted to help, I give methods on how to handle the stress, not to alleviate the problem of like they don't have a car. That's for them to decide. That's for them to solve that problem on their own. Like, hey, we're not as rich anymore. Now I have to get okay, well that's something you have to figure out. But what I can help you with is how do you handle your stress? How do you deal with adversity? I mean, these things are really important. To me, always the response is training, but maybe you can't train, right? So what are some other alternatives that can help you manage this and put yourself in a better mindset? Because I don't want anyone to be depressed. I hate
No.
even when people use the term like, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm like, no, you're not. You're blue, and that's okay. You're allowed to feel blue. It's okay to feel sad. Those are all good things to feel because it means that you eventually will feel happy at one point. When you're depressed, you feel nothing. You feel devalued. There's no emotions to have. You want to just stop feeling anything, and then you just become numb. So like, yeah, that's kind of where I was eventually with the injury. Then ultimately, that's why I wanted to take my own life. That's what I thought that was the most rational decision to take, is that because I'm such a burden on everybody that I should go, right?
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's like
it's
that's
rough.
That's like next level. And what got you out of it? Like, what helped you get out of this when you were at the bottom to finally climb up? It's like you're climbing out of the darkness. How did you do that?
How do I get there? A lot of I would say a lot of people who just didn't give up on me would be one. I got to see who my real friends were for sure. I lost a lot of connections to a lot of people because everyone's reaction to kind of depression is a little bit different. I would say there's some people who smile and they pretend like you would not be able to tell at all. And it hits them in waves, right? It'll just like everything's fine, they're smiling, blah, and next thing they tried to commit suicide. For me, it was anger. And I remember my therapist saying that sometimes men, that's one of the ways they respond, right? They get mad. And I just got mad. I got mad at everybody. And I was just inherently pushing people away. I don't know if I want to say it was consciously or subconsciously, but I was pushing people away. And then there were some people who just refused to leave me alone. They're just like, no, this isn't you. This is not you. And we're gonna kind of help you out of it. But still, after my attempt, um, thank God, unsuccessfully, the next day, I got a phone call from my brother and my younger brother. And I think so. My younger brother, I don't know, none of many people know him, but it's like, so my younger brother is very my opposite. So I'm very extroverted, loud, annoying, and he is very kind of more introverted, listens well, and kind of still can be annoying, but he takes in more information better than me, and then mulls it over, and then thinks out and whatever. So he gave me a call, and he just Drew, just let me have it. Like, I'm saying, just berating me. I was like, I'm so sick of you. I'm so tired of this. I hate the way you're. And then he has no idea too what had happened, transpired just the day before. Like, I'm so sick of you. I'm so sick of this. And you have to figure out what you want to do. Am I going to introduce people as, here's my brother, the martial artist who has all these great values to teach, or here's the piece of shit that I hate and I don't like hanging out with him, and I hope he would just decide what the hell he wants to do. And then he says, decide, and just hangs up the phone. And I think
Wow.
the first time in forever in that time, I cried. And just like that disgusting, every orifice leaking cry, and that was probably one of the most profound and impactful moments. And it allowed me for that brief moment to kind of look outside myself. So I started then volunteering at any kind of soup kitchen in East Hastings, anything to just get myself out of my own headspace.
Mm-hmm.
So, and around that time, there were some sexual assaults that was happening at our universities, and I had saw it on the news, and it just, something about that moment struck a chord with me, because I was walking with a cane at that point, and I was thinking to myself that, despite walking in a cane and being so fragile, I guess, I would still fight. If someone were to junk me, or something were to happen, if I saw something going wrong that I didn't agree with, like, I would do something about it. I even with my stick, Mr. Miyagi kind of, I would beat him with the stick. I'd fight. There was a fight response in me. I can't even imagine someone who doesn't know anything, how to defend themselves, or anything like that. Like, how would they go about their day to day? What an anxious way to live. Like, I can't, I just empathize so deeply. It's like being on a boat, but you don't know how to swim
Yeah.
at all. What a terrifying feeling, right? Well, right. So I just, something about that moment, and it just clicked with me. And I immediately reached out to a friend who introduced me to this other place. It was like a yoga studio. I gave them the pitch of my idea, say, hey, I want to just teach for free for my own well-being, but just to give back where I can. She said, sure. So I started teaching for free, and it became 5 students, 10 students, 15 students. I just kept getting more and more students, female students, to teach. And then it was that same friend who said, you should make a business out of it. And that's kind of how we
That's where
started.
Modern
Warrior
Warrior.
started. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes the best ideas just, like, that's the thing too with entrepreneurship. I mean, look, I don't have an entrepreneurial mind like you. I mean, but everybody can be one. But you
Yeah.
gotta know, you gotta put the work in.
Oh my God. It was so tough. it was so hard to start. Well, first off, financially too, like I just said, like I've been on welfare this whole time. So where did I get the money? Because I told my friend too, I was like, how am I going to get this started? It's like, no, man, you should just ask some friends for some money. And I was like, who am I going to ask? What a joke. He's like, don't be so proud. Just go ask. And I did. And I started the business, and it was one friend in particular. I hope he's listening to this. His name was Bob. He gave me a decent amount of cash that kind of really jump started this whole thing, and I'm forever in his debt still. So I'm just like,
Awesome.
yeah, if it wasn't for him, the kindness of his heart, right, to be able to like trust me enough and see value in what I was doing, right, and yeah, it was about 4 months into training. I was teaching it with the cane, and then my back started getting better. It was crazy. It's like such a crazy thing. But you're saying not everyone has an entrepreneurial mind, or like I don't think I have an entrepreneurial mind. I feel like if you think that there's something that the community is lacking, or if you feel like there's something that you can provide that other people aren't doing well, or that you can do better, or like you can just make a difference for somebody, whether it be clothes, whatever, a frivolous thing that you just think is going to make it impactful. I think that's what needs to be the idea first before the
Yeah.
idea of making money. Because to me, making money was never I didn't even think this would pull off, to be quite honest. I just wanted to do something that I thought might be useful. And then it started making money. So it was, I think if you ever start an idea with the intention of just making money, I don't think it'll work out.
Yeah, exactly. When I do this podcast, like for example, like I have like some people say you should do a giveaway to get fall. I don't do this show to like gain attention. Like for example, like when I had Gustafson's you follow MMA, I take,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I mentioned the show Moments
Gustafson, yeah,
Management.
yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
had his manager on my show, Nima, fellow Persian, by the way. So shout out to Nima.
Oh,
Yeah.
shout out. Noruzatun Piruz, all you Persian people there. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, and I always say, like, I always love talking about this on my show because when I first had my interaction with Nima, amazing guy, by the way, because a lot of MMA managers would just kind of like brush you aside, being no, no, no. But Nima takes the time like to really
Mm-hmm.
help up and comers like myself. Like he saw something in me, and you know, I guess that's amazing. That's why we're not close, but you know, like we
Yeah,
always
yeah,
talk when needed. Nima said it best. He's like, here's what I want to say. I'm quoting him here. Everybody wants to be the next Joe Rogan, Ariel Helwani, the next big entrepreneur, but they only see the results of others. They don't
yeah,
want to put the work in. And he's like, if anyone ever tells you that you should do this or that, that person has never done the 20 other podcasts, and you're doing more than they're doing. They can have their
yeah,
opinions, but keep doing you. It's going to come. Don't rush it. Everything comes in due time.
yeah. Absolutely. I think. Oops, sorry. I
Ah, it's
think
okay.
that's the point. Even I think even Joe Rogan himself said when they asked him once, he was like, "Why did you start the podcast?" He's like, "Cause I'm a curious guy. I just wanted to get to ask questions or something."
Yeah.
I don't remember. I'm paraphrasing. He said like, "Yeah, I'm curious and I really like to have my questions answered." So I'm like, that'd be kind of cool to just have this guy on and ask him some stuff and just pick his brain. Like I don't think he even wanted to necessarily make money. He just kind of started it, and then it just kind of picked up because he brought some pretty interesting people on board and asked pretty cool questions. So yeah.
That's how I do it. Yeah, like for me, like when people say like, "How did you get Nima on?" and
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, look, I obviously, you know, you formed connections. There was a past guest I have. Shout out to Andre Benke, he's a Brazilian MMA coach, and Benke knew Nima, so he connected me, and that's what he said. The connections you make from these projects are so key. Like how you treat others to
Mm.
get where you want to be. If you want to get somewhere, you have to give value by always like, you know, having like a good rapport. Like I
Yeah,
still talk to my past guests. Like I still do. Like sometimes I just check in. Hey, what's up? How's everything going? Like I'll share some of their posts. You have to stay relevant because you never know how they're going to help you down the road again and
absolutely.
again.
Absolutely, for sure. But see the fact that you're keeping tabs on them and checking up on them is so it's the love of wanting to make that connection too. So again, you're doing this for you. And
Yeah.
if it ends up picking up, then great. And if it doesn't, there's no regrets still, right? Because you did something you loved. So I think that's like the biggest thing is making sure that whatever it is that you're doing, there's no regrets there. You can look back at it and be like, no, that was time well spent.
It really was. I always
Yeah.
like, I used a saying by the late Charlie Murphy. I have this quote on my phone. It's before he passed away. He said, "Don't take life for granted, and don't take people for granted."
For
I
sure. I
really
like
always
that.
try to put
I
that
like that.
quote into practice, because everyone has many quotes. I've seen many quotes, but that's one that's so poignant with like life. Because at the end of the day, when we go, Sasha, I don't want people to say, I remember Drew because he drove a Honda. He had a nice house and a nice couch I could sit on. Like, I want people to remember me as, you know what? He went full steam ahead with this podcast. And I remember him when he reached out to me and said, I see something in you. Let's get something going. And
Yeah,
I
man.
remember that's what I want. I want people to, you want to be remembered for the impact you have on others,
For sure.
not for
Absolutely.
materialism.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
And how have you done now with Modern Warrior? How do you feel the future is? Because I mean, look, we had COVID, but it's still doing good. Like, I mean, God, I'm happy to see that. Like,
Yeah.
and how has it been with working with trauma? Because you said you brought a trauma specialist, and what has that been like? That must be so interesting.
So so the first thing is like Modern Warrior in general, it's been okay because the business isn't necessarily doing well, I would say, but it's we're surviving, which is
Okay.
more I'm more than I could ask because right now we have no classes.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach privates where people want to do privates, and we kind of leave it at that for now because we're not pushing our luck. There's a lot of gyms out there that are being open, and I think ultimately that's a really big risk because all you need is one breakout and that's it. The gym closes. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
And we're a small place and we're still trying to really grow ourselves. We've been officially in the business for 3 years now. And well, 4 years now. Yeah. But, wow, 4 years. Holy. Okay. So yeah. So, I mean, 4 years, and the third year is a write-off, right? 2020 was a write-off. So, what do I do? I can't justify opening it and something happens. Like even the kids, I had a whole big kids class that I remember was teaching we teach Kyokushin here. We're part of an organization with Shihan Tats called Seiyu Karate. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to call it Seiyu Karate in BC, but it's part of IKO Nakamura. But so I was teaching Seiyu here, and I can't see them now, and I miss them. I miss
I
them
don't
just
blame
running
you.
around, right? So with that being said, their safety was a big concern for me. So I just doing the private. So we're kind of doing the bare minimum we can just to survive. As far as working with
Mm-hmm.
trauma, that's been definitely interesting. It's been challenging for sure, but it's so interesting to see how people react to different sets of circumstances and trauma. There's some people who are still paralyzed with fear, and there's some people who are just mad at the situation overall. And you really get to see how they act when you put them in those uncomfortable positions again in the dojo. And I have to always emphasize that whenever they come in there, I tell them to still os. Even though we're not doing Kyokushin, I tell them to os. And I explain to them, I'm like, when you os, you're giving yourself the opportunity for a moment to be present with me here in the now, right? Nothing else outside of the dojo matters. None of the trauma that you've experienced like is going to necessarily leave this room. We want to bring all that energy of whatever it is that you're feeling in here, and it stays in here, and you sweat it out in here so that you can leave the dojo in peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel that you need to cry, cry. If you feel like you need to get mad and shout, get mad and shout. This is a place that you can be vulnerable. This is a place that you can show that kind of weakness, because not only is there no judgment, there's no consequences of that vulnerability. You know what I mean? So, but getting people to kind of open up has been challenging for sure. It's been really challenging. But I think having Victoria on board, it gives it the next kind of dynamic of that, because certain words can be very triggering for people that and then we as a group before didn't really understand. We read about it, we tried to study as best as we can about it, but she brought in a different perspective that we hadn't thought about how certain topics can actually bring people back to such a bad place, and we don't want that. We want them to conquer what it is that they went through, not
Mm-hmm.
bring them back and help have them just stay there. So Yeah, I think ultimately we're doing something that a lot of like a lot of these places, again, I'm gonna say like Krav Maga, self-defense, this, jujitsu, that. They all focus on reactionary stuff, which is like someone does something and I do something as a result. But the most important self-defense is actually the identification and prevention. Those things are the most important. And then we also teach in the dojo like the rule of law of Canada of what you can and can't do depending on scenarios. Because the last thing I want to do is I teach you a self-defense thing, you apply it, and then you go to jail.
Hmm.
So what's the point,
Very true. Very true. No,
right?
you're doing everything. It's
I
great to
I
see
feel
what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. So we don't want to. I make it very clear, and I think that's why a lot of these other gyms they don't. I still train at a WKX, for example, and I go to different gyms, and nobody is really intimidated by me or the guys that I train because I'm not training them for competition. They come in and they're training for real life application, and then I always tell them I'll still teach them some, if they're interested, like basic, get their feet wet competition stuff, and if they grow past me, I said, hey, this is the place to go now. This is the place. If you want to keep competing, go to WKX, go to, go here, go there, go there. Like, I can only take you so far because I don't want to be dipping into their, you know what I mean? It's not my, I just don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be a gym that creates MMA guys right now. That's not our goal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. No, it's really good to see what you're doing. It's like you have a platform, especially like as mentioned. It's like and even to like get trauma victims to forget what they're like that moment to just be present. That's
Yeah.
such a challenge in itself, and it's so big. But I mean, so kudos to you for
Thanks,
really
buddy. No, I appreciate
doing
it.
that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it because we realize that a lot of these gyms they end up trying to train people to go into the ring, and like
Mm-hmm.
most normal people don't want to get hit in the head often. I think it takes a special person to want to go in there and like do that. So what do the normal people do? I just want to teach you how to swim so you can tread water. I just don't want you to drown, right? And that's always been the goal of Modern Warrior. I mean, our ultimate goal right now is to have this program recognized by the BC government, and I would love to standardize it in such a way that we could teach
Yeah.
basic self-defense to like high schools. Imagine, can you imagine grade 9 to 12, and by the time you reach grade 12, people are not only well versed in identification and prevention, but they have enough reactionary skills that sexual assault crimes and like victims would just decline because people actually fight,
Yeah. It's
right?
so true. It's so true.
Uh,
Like less bullying. I think with these like classes, like obviously
Absolutely.
you're gonna have to talk. Obviously, there's always gonna be like hurdles, but I'm a very big proponent. I always tell like people like at the next parent teacher interviews, really start bringing up martial arts. And if they say, oh well, it promotes, it's not about fighting. I guarantee you, if you get some form of martial arts in there, whether that's like basic folk style wrestling or like with maybe some like
Anything,
kickboxing,
man. For
you're
sure.
going to see a rapid change in the self-esteem of both like the perpetrator of bullying and the victim. Like there's gonna be that mutual respect because like every Shihan or sensei I've spoken with has said we've had it where we brought in the bully to the dojo, and then in the end the bully becomes the changed person. Like
Yeah.
that they flip the script where they
Yeah.
start being more respectful and they realize that like, and we don't shame them, we help them realize this is where they were, but this is who they can be if they put the work in.
Yeah.
Same with the
Absolutely.
victim. So it's really amazing that you're doing that, and I really hope that it gets into high schools. Like really make sure you get the backing on it because there's always going to be one or two people that are like hesitant, but you have to just keep making that push. Like I'm sure you've heard it before, making that push. You just if you have one, if it's two against one, like in terms of like someone like doesn't
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
in it, you have two people that support you. That's still better
Yeah.
than
For
that.
sure.
And then
No,
eventually
for
that
sure.
one becomes three, and then it's three on, then it's 3-0, and then
Uh,
you have it creates a whole wildfire.
yeah. No, for sure. I think I also for me as a competitor too,
Hmm.
I this is one of the reasons why it's such a joy to compete in Asia because I think martial arts is so ingrained into the culture that we still don't have a very well developed culture around combat sports. To us, anything that involves a ring or people wearing gloves and just versing each other, it's immediately violence, and therefore it's immediately something that's connected with negativity and crime. I mean, I think I think Dutch kickboxing in general was usually done by like criminals in the first place. It was like mostly guys tatted up, whatever. Like that's the image, right? And for us to change that, we have to introduce it at a young age to be like, this is actually what it's about. And these guys who are competing are athletes. That's why actually, you know, the term that we use, like to have a fight, I still use it, but it's incorrect. It's not a fight. It's a match. It's a bout.
Mhm.
So all these guys talking smack to each other, like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to pretend like it's life or death. Like, no, but it's not life or death. And you very well know it. And whoever's in the fan who believes you, you know, they're just not educated on the fact that it's not. A life or death situation is a street altercation where you have no idea what that other person is capable of, and you have no idea where their headspace is at, versus a bout and a match where you have a ref, you have a corner, you have 1 minute off every 5 minute rounds. You have a guy, when you get knocked out, he'll come and be like, okay, fight's over. And you have doctors. Now, you telling me that's a fight? Sorry, it's not.
No.
And I'm wearing pillows on my hand for the moment. But I mean facetious, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Versus which is a street fight. I talk something, I try to defend myself, guy pulls out a knife. Holy crap, altercation just changed. Holy
exactly.
crap, that's life or death now. Now what do I do? So yeah, I think just changing the language and getting people to realize that we're ultimately athletes and we're martial artists, and then that these aren't fights, and that the real fight is that we're trying to defend ourselves. We're trying to get people to learn how to defend themselves so that they don't become victims. That's it. That's the
Hmm.
goal,
Very
right?
true. It's very
Yeah.
true. Well, so the other question I have is now, like, as mentioned, it's surviving and it's getting better. And you have a grander scheme of things, and not grander scheme, but I mean a better idea of what you want to go, how
Scheme,
you the
scheme,
scheme. Like,
scheme.
I always do when I say scheme, I
Yeah,
think of Doc.
scheme.
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
it like, because Nakamura, I wanted to, this is like the last question I have, with
Sure, sure.
Nakamura, how do you feel Nakamura is really growing in terms of for Kyokushin and your role in it? Like, how do you feel about your role with Nakamura in 2021 and beyond as the future really looks bright? Because I see a lot of big things happening with Nakamura.
So for me, we call him, so before he was Shihan Nakamura, but he's Sosui Nakamura now, right? Since IKO Nakamura. And so maybe a lot of people don't know this, but when I was 19 years old, I got to go be his uchideshi there. So I got to live in the Hombu dojo for like 3 to 4 months.
Hmm.
And I think that was probably still to this day the most profound, impactful experience of my life. And I think it really set the stage for me that I could never really leave martial arts, as it's like it just embedded in my life. And he was he was I have to say, he was really mean. He was super mean to me, and he would say things like, is that Canada style? Is that the Canada way? He would say stuff like that and just like kind of challenge me to quit, and I just couldn't bear to disappoint people back home, but also I'm just like, I didn't want him to be right. I was like, no, no, I'm not going anywhere. So he'd keep challenging me and keep doing these things like that. But I got to see this man as, I got to see the real sides of him. He's like such a hardworking person. He's so dedicated to his craft. He's so eager to make sure that the real roots of Kyokushin are never forgotten, because it's something that deserves to be preserved. And the lengths at which he was going to make it happen, it was just, I admired him. As much as I disliked him at the beginning because he was so mean to me, I had to respect him. I admired him so much. And then the way that I think him himself had like 73, 72 dojos under him. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like
Yeah.
just him, not even just like now it's huge, right? But like just under him, like just crazy amount of dojos and then all these senseis that he's created, these shodans and senseis and shihans that he's created, and they all running a dojo as well, and they all answer to him, and he has a set standard that he set for everybody. Um, it was just so impressive, and I was so inspired by him that like like, I want that. I love what this guy's doing. He has such good values, and he wants to make sure that they stick around. And then now it's Daihyo, his son, who's like carrying it, carrying that torch. And I think just that entire organization, how they give shout outs to everybody, every Shihan, every major branch chief in the different parts of the world that are running Kyokushin gyms. Every time there's a world tournament, they will give them a shout out, give them representation. Daihyo is actually incredibly active on social media. It's just like a side of Kyokushin I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was missing, and he's like they're filling in that gaps. So as far as being a part of that organization, I'm super proud and I'm so excited. As far as my role goes, I don't know. I'd love to play a bigger role as it develops. I'm trying my best. So I like under Shihan Tats, I run a dojo as well, right? So I'm trying to do my part to grow Seiyu Karate and IKO Nakamura wherever I can go. But I'd love to play a big role. I've competed in the world tournament now twice. I placed top 8 twice, 2 years in a row. So in my head as a competitor, I got to win that tournament. I'm just and to whoever's listening too, I'm training really hard to get a first place.
Nice.
But but even afterwards, just keep making it big and keep pushing it. And even wherever my self-defense gym goes, I'm going to be ensuring that there's a Kyokushin gym that's with it. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's my
Awesome.
plans.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank you, Sasha, for coming on and taking time. This was
Thank you
super
for
fun.
having me, man. No, thank you for doing this. I want to give you a shout out. You deserve it. All your hard work and doing this and really pushing martial arts. I think I think exactly what I said. We need an educated populace that understands what it is that they're watching on the UFC or boxing and all this other stuff. And we need people like you to push that perspective. So thank you.
Thank you. Where can people connect with you if they want to, like, for on all your platforms?
Oh, I get a platform shout out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll take it. All right. So Sasha Tadayoni is my Instagram handle. MW Self Defense at MW Self Defense with a C, because
Hmm.
I think S Self Defense with an S is American. We're Canadian. So
Yeah.
MW Self Defense with a C is our Instagram handle. You can follow us at Facebook also. It's / MW Self Defense again with a C. And yeah, like pretty much anything that I am going to be doing as far as self-defense, we're going to be posting it up there. I don't know if you heard recently, there was like a girl who got followed in the Vancouver area. It was all over Instagram for a while. She was being followed for like 40 minutes. Drew, if you can find this video, go watch it. It's surreal to watch. It's super scary. You can see the fear in her eyes. I'm going to be posting something up on that soon on Instagram to kind of acknowledge that it happened, but we're going to be doing a self-defense seminar again for free. Donations and proceeds go to the Rape Relief and Women's Center here in
Good.
Vancouver. Yeah, we're going to be doing something else and we're going to use that scenario exactly, what to do, different things that to do, and I'm going to try to get Victoria to lead it again. So
Hmm.
definitely, if you guys want to stay tuned for that, I'll make sure to give you a shout. And if you want to
Thank you.
spread yeah, for
I'll
sure.
do what I can. Yeah, as I
Yeah,
mentioned,
man.
we enough slices of pie to go around. So,
Yeah,
Sasha, thank
yeah.
you for coming
Thank you
on.
for having me.
Anytime, man. Anytime. You have
Yeah.
yourself a good one.
Yeah, you too. Eid Mubarak, guys. Bye
Hey,
bye.
move on.